Yes. Hello, is this on, Dorian?
Maybe the battery turned off.
You gotta pull it up. Can you pull it up? Oh,
Yeah, he did do that.
Hey, Dorian?
Check the bottom.
Dorian.
Maybe he turned himself off because it was on sleeping.
The mic. I don't know.
Is this on?
No, I think it went to sleep.
No, that one time.
It went to sleep.
Well, it went off. Well, it did.
Thank you.
Yeah, he flipped the switch and said, hello, Dorian. And nothing happened.
Hello. Okay. Hi. So I'd like to, I'm going to have to read this because I didn't have time to rehearse. On behalf of the Key West Business Guild, thank you for being here tonight. My name is Rob. I'm the Executive Director of the Guild. It's my honor to welcome you and thank you for being here for this important community gathering on the future of our Rainbow Crosswalk. As you know, the crosswalks are more than just painted lines. They're symbols of visibility, pride, and our long-standing commitment to inclusion, diversity, and one human family. They're woven into our daily lives, and they reflect the values that we share as a community. In 2015, it was the Business Guild that spearheaded the efforts to make them a reality, and we've been invested in them from the very beginning. The motivation for tonight's gathering comes from the passion, the creativity, and the commitment that we've seen from the LGBTQ community since the announcement was on July 3rd, July 1st that we found out about this, and our allies in response to federal and state overreach demanding their removal. This is more about just paint on the pavement, we all know that. It's about whether people in Key West have the right to express and celebrate our values in our own city. Tonight is not just about listening, it's a forum for meaningful discussion, most importantly, productive action. We're here to gather facts, share perspectives, and work together on concrete steps forward. So thank you for showing up, for speaking out, and for being part of shaping the next chapter of this story. Together, we will ensure that Key West continues to shine as a beacon of diversity, freedom, and self-expression, as we have on a recent Facebook post that has garnered 750,000 hits. We want to express our gratitude to the City of Key West leadership for providing the space, for being here with us tonight. Special thanks to Dorian Patton, I'm going to get this title wrong, Community Commission Liaison and Special Projects Coordinator, and for helping to coordinate this so quickly. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize and thank our Associate Director, Fritzy Escamon, whose dedication and hard work has been essential in bringing this event together. So it's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Corey Convertito, the President of the Key West Business Guild Board of Directors, who's going to guide us through tonight's panel and community discussion. It doesn't work.
Thank you. I don't know who brought those ducks. Wait, I'm gonna come fight you. No. Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Thank you for the your thoughtful introduction to tonight, and for help setting the tone. I think for what I hope will be a constructive and collaborative conversation this evening, and the panelists as well. For those of you who don't know me, I am Dr. Corey Convertito. I am board president for the Key West Business Guild, and I've been a proud resident here for 25 plus years, and I'm also the historian and the curator for the Key West Art and Historical Society, which I proudly love and serve this community in both roles. So I'm pleased to be here, and thank you for Fritzy. Is it? I don't know, I'm a loud Italian woman, so it's hard to tell if the mic's on or not.
Does it sound off to you?
It's off. The mic's off. You can hear it.
Oh.
Jorian. It's still on. I'm just loud. I can keep. I'm just gonna roll with it.
Exactly,
This
right?
one's on. Can I use this one?
No, you guys are gonna need that more than I will, and you'll need it soon. Oh crap. Okay. It is an honor to serve as. Oh, that's better. Hey, here I am. All right, it's an honor to serve as tonight's moderator. My goal for this evening is for this to be a space where we listen, we learn, we share, and we actively support our city, not only in its efforts to preserve the Rainbow Crosswalks, but also in exploring how we can continue to amplify the message of the LGBTQ plus community of inclusion, regardless of the outcome of what happens with the state's proceedings. Okay, so that's how I'm framing tonight, and that's based on conversations we had with the Guild for this community evening. I'm going to go over what the format will be tonight. We're going to begin by having a moderated Q&A discussion with our 4 panel members who have generously offered their time tonight and their expertise. I will introduce each of them shortly. They will speak to their understanding of local and statewide efforts regarding the crosswalks. I've prepared some focus questions for each of them that will help guide our discussion later on, because we will open it up, and that leads me to my next point. Following the Q&A with each of them, I will be joined by Fritzy Estamond, who will facilitate a brief audience comment Q&A session. Community members who signed up, if you did, if not, we're gonna probably be a little more loosey-goosey about it as we roll on. You might be inspired by something you hear from the panelists. It might prompt a question or a suggestion. You guys can share feedback, positive feedback, suggestions, or ask questions of our panelists. The goal tonight is, I think, to hear not only if the crosswalks stay or if they go, but hearing things of what the city can do to amplify the LGBTQ plus message in the community. Ideas that we, because I think they've been flooding into the Guild and to each of us in these conversations, so we'd love to hear it. Even if they're weird and wonderful, okay? And before we close, I'm gonna hand it over to the Guild team to share some updates on how to stay involved and informed as we move forward through this process, because we're wanting to keep some clear lines of communication open between all of us, so the messaging is clear and concise and cohesive between all of these bodies, because we all know what social media does. So we would like to, and hopefully keep that messaging line open and communicate. If you have more ideas, and if it's not brought out tonight, you have a place to share those with those folks in the community. All right, great. All right, we're incredibly grateful to have knowledgeable and dedicated group of panelists joining us tonight. First, down the end, Brian Barroso, City Manager of Key West. He will speak to his communication with FDOT and provide insight into the crosswalks compliance with state guidelines. Kendall Harden, Interim City Attorney, will provide a legal and procedural update and discuss the city's preparations for the September 3rd meeting in Orlando. Joe Saunders, just to Rob's right, is the Senior Political Director of Equality Florida, the nation's largest state-based LGBTQ rights organization. He's a former state representative, Florida state representative, and the first openly LGBTQ lawmaker elected in the state. He has led major campaigns to protect LGBTQ rights and advance equality. Joe is recognized nationally as a powerful voice for justice and inclusion. Thank you. And Rob, our final panelist, who serves as the executive director of the Key West Business Guild, will speak about the origins of the Rainbow Crosswalks, the Guild's role, and the broader community response. So thank you. Can you join me in welcoming our 4 panelists? Thank you all for being here. Before we dive into the Q&A, I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to share a brief opening thought, if you have one. If you're too scared to do so,
Do it anyway.
Do it anyway. I can just go into the questions, but I'm going to move this microphone back, as I will just be loud. Or if that one works. Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
If anybody has some opening thoughts before we get into the questions, please feel free. All at once.
Hey, everybody. Testing. Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot to discuss. This is, in some ways, very simple, in some ways, very complex. And so I'll save the majority of my comments for the discussion that we're going to be facilitated through. But I will just start maybe hear. So Equality Florida is Florida's statewide LGBT civil rights organization. My role at Equality Florida has been to help lead our policy, political, and election programs. This is my 20th year at Equality Florida. I have, it's been a minute since I've been to Key West, but I have had a chance to be here before and work with some of you. Our team was the team that found, read, and named the Don't Say Gay law when it first came out. Our team has been in the trenches on the fight for marriage equality. Our team has been in the fight against the slate of hate, this barrage of laws and executive actions that have come from the administration that is currently leading our state. And I think a place to start, because where I want to take you all in my portion of this discussion is a little bit in the weeds in how we got here in policy. I know that we have some very smart legal folks here who can brief on this as well, but I want to take you a little bit deeper into how cities are responding. I think that's my role on this panel. So before we get that deep though, I do just want to say, there's a theme that's coming from Tallahassee, and it's happened because of this governor. We live in a state where, it's, as long as I've been doing this work, we've lived in a state where Tallahassee was red and our cities were blue, and we all kind of figured it out together. But the level of antagonism, specifically to the LGBTQ community, has reached such a fevered pitch. And it is why we are here today. And so I think you have to start from the place that says there is a pretty specific agenda to erase and make invisible Florida's LGBTQ community. It's shown up in our schools, it's shown up in the discourse around what books there are and people have access to, about what teachers can and can't say in a classroom. It's shown up in many, many ways. And so now this fight is here, this fight around not just paint on asphalt, not just crosswalks, but really a fight about the visibility of our community. And when we put one of these crosswalks down, what we're actually saying is there's a legacy of erasure, not just from the state capital here in Florida, but across the country. And that legacy has been matched with a legacy of resilience. They tried to erase us in the 80s when the HIV epidemic hit. Reagan never said out loud that this affected our community. He wouldn't even say HIV out loud. This legacy follows us, and these signs of visibility are anchored in a fundamental belief that we have been resilient and our visibility matters, signaling that resiliency matters. So I just wanted to ground us in that. I know that you're going to do some of this too, Rob, when you speak and tell about the history. Some of the most famous streets in the country are here in Florida. Duval Street and Ocean Drive, where I live. You all might argue and wrestle for who gets to be the most famous, but there's a reason why our community is so visible on these streets and why it matters so much. This isn't just about bricks and paint. This is about being seen, being welcomed. And that's the discourse I'm excited to be a part of with you all today.
Thank you for that. I don't think anybody's gonna want to follow that. So I'm just gonna move right into it. I'm gonna read the room. Okay. Brian, we're gonna start with you, I think, to kind of get an understanding from the city's perspective. Many of us have read the FDOT letter the city posted publicly, so I think we're aware of that. Can you walk us through, and I think just to make sure that we all understand what it said, what was received, and what steps the city has taken to assess the crosswalks compliance with FDOT regulations?
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity. Doesn't feel like it's Yes. Okay, so one, thank you for the opportunity. As you communicated, what we've tried to do is each time that we've been in receipt of any communication, we try to be extremely transparent with that, and post it on our website and at least cascaded socially. So the initial letter that we received, in layman's terms, felt like a blanket letter, a little bit more of awareness, but we really didn't understand exactly what that meant. Because what I would tell you, and again, if I'm speaking, it's not to speak for any particular commissioner or the mayor. I'm gonna assign it to my understanding. The initial letter, the way the city received it, was awareness, but I would tell you it was from a point that we believed that 2 of the crosswalks were compliant. so there was a point in that we were grounded in to say that the initial 2 crosswalks were done in a manner in which we worked with FDOT. We used the coloring that was associated with the asphalt. So we felt very strongly that, okay, if is it possible that the other 2 may not be in compliant, that's a possibility, but we were unaware of that. So what we started to do was more of a research. We started from a place to believe that 2 of them were done in a way that we believe were compliant, and then was there a path forward to make the other 2 compliant, whether it be through additional painting or some type of adjustment to what was there. So that was the initial response, but it was also in a manner in which we were gathering more information. So we communicated that to the commission and to the mayor, and immediately got a response, okay, well, let's start searching for avenues, because we believe collectively that removing them was not the path that we wanted to go down. The second letter was a little bit more precise. That actually directed us to really start to understand, okay, well, what was our options? Because it felt more direct. I would tell you that in the interim, there was a meeting. We could speak to the resolution, but I believe that there was an opportunity for the citizens in the community to understand the collective 7 where they stood. So the resolution was passed about what we believe as a city we should be doing, but it was always in conjunction with our legal team and our department to source and determine what our next path was. It wasn't until the second letter was extremely direct about, okay, well, we don't believe you are in compliance. So now we're getting a very direct terminology that you're not in compliance. So not to speak for Kendall, but then our response was, okay, well, do you mean all 4 or do you mean 2? Then we got a response saying, oh, all 4 are not in compliance. So the next course of action was in the letter, which most people understand would, okay, well, you have an opportunity now to go to understand at a location named in the letter. So we were provided that 3rd date. It's a little bit difficult because we have a commission meeting that day. But so our path was, okay, well then we're gonna go, we're gonna hire representation, which we did. We procured representation to understand what our options are at this point. So what we're doing, 2 parallel paths. The first parallel path is, as you already established, or we've established, we believe they should stay. We believe we have an opportunity to either come in compliance or find a way to either get an exception or any type of opportunity to keep them where they're at. That's one path. The second path is to really, tonight I believe is a good step in that, is to understand, okay, well, if we wake up in a world in which they are not there, what can we do? What are the options? Do we start sourcing and understanding, are there viable plan Bs? Could there be another location or what have you? So everything has been very proactive in my opinion from the city's perspective. But it's also been an opportunity to try to understand really where we're at, what are our options. And I believe that we've responded the way that we should, candidly and respectfully. And now we're waiting again for the next domino to fall, candidly. What is next after the 3rd?
Great, thank you. That's a great response, and we appreciate it. And I think the optics, I think in the community, it does seem that you guys are being very proactive, and even just your willingness to be here and participate in this demonstrates that openness and the proactiveness in the community. My next question, I'm going to stick with you, and then we'll just move the microphone down. I'm sorry to just spotlight you, but it just makes sense with one microphone. So one of the things that the letter, or at least initially what was highlighted, was safety concerns, that these crosswalks, and I know that that's been talked about and batted around within the community, and those are things that have popped up in conversations about that. I mean, it's more this is a curiosity question. What dealings did you have with the Key West Police Department in order to ascertain potential safety problems, or is it any more dangerous on that corner or not? I mean, because it's just a question I think all of us have asked one another in thinking about, the safety, because it's cited so often in letters, not only to us, but to other Florida cities.
Absolutely, so it's a great question, so thank you for the opportunity to answer that. I would tell you that it's, usually we have a pragmatic approach, so it's facts over feelings. So when we hear that, okay, well, what does the data tell us. So what we asked Chief Brandenburg to provide was just data regarding those intersections. Okay, give us very pertinent data, whether it be vehicle accidents, pedestrian accidents, or what have you, or the like. So we gathered that data and we cascaded that information as well. I would probably tell you from a layman's perspective, it feels like it's a normal corner activity or incidents that would involve a normal corner in Key West. But again, that's a layman's terms. But I would tell you that we did put effort into gathering data. It wasn't just hey, we don't believe it to be a distraction. If the correlation is it's a distraction that is increasing the propensity for an accident, I would need another expert to tell me that there's a correlation between that data. I would not be able to do that with what we surface. We have an accident.
Are you leaving? Bye.
No, somebody's trying to come in.
Someone's trying to
Not
get
thought I was doing well.
So the pizza's here.
Oh, we got pizza? Okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
But if someone would like that data.
And that's the thing, I think that's kind of a point of interest, because in conversations that's come up often, I think people are concerned because that's what the state is citing in so many of their correspondence. Again, not only to Key West, but statewide to other municipalities. This is a safety concern, and I've seen information being let out by other municipalities saying they have done their due diligence and contacted their authorities with local PD and what has come from that, what information is come from that. But I think it just shows the due diligence, and I'm so glad to hear that you've done it.
We have it, and if there's individuals that would like access to that, you have my commitment to actually put that information on our website, so we can direct that. If you give me till tomorrow, it'll be here. But if you need it specifically, we can provide it.
Yeah, I just think it's people are interested. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Looking ahead, speaking with you, Brian, regardless of the outcome of the, I believe you're going to be finished after this one. Don't worry, fear not. Looking ahead, regardless of the outcome of the September 3rd meetings, what opportunities do you see? And this is something you touched on as part of your first answer to us. What opportunities do you see for the community input and on future efforts to promote inclusivity and welcoming all visitors to our island? You touched on that a little bit. Meetings like this. What other opportunities maybe do you see for that?
Well, regardless of the medium, so it could be a meeting, it could be just us talking. I really believe that it starts from a place of understanding and a place of what is the path forward. Some things in our lives happen to us, and what I believe we can do collectively is explore opportunities to find where can we, if we wake up and those are no longer there, okay, well, what are the options? I would tell you that particular commissioner has already asked, well, what about the sidewalks? And so we are vetting, what are the options in a world in which we understand the importance of being seen and understood. We understand the importance in the legacy of Key West. And is there an opportunity to allow different locations to, collectively, it's hard to be everything for everyone and say, okay, well, we're gonna put it there. There's some are gonna say thank you and some are gonna say not there. But do I think that with Mallory Square revitalization and Duval Street revitalization, some of these projects that we as a city are bringing forward, I do believe that we have an opportunity to find locations that would be outside of the scope and responsibility of FDOT, and would allow us to have a representation that's significant as it is now. It may feel less than because it's not there, but I do think that collectively with the commission and communication and collaboration with our community, do I believe strongly that we could find an opportunity to find another location that can represent it in the way that it should. I do, and we would be open to that. And I would be open to take direction from the 7 where that would be. But I do think that it'd be viable to find locations. In my mind, I'm just thinking about projects that we have programmed coming forward that I believe have an opportunity to provide the significance and the visibility that we have being in that intersection.
Great, thank you. I think it's nice to just hear that coming from the city that, we are being proactive, the what ifs, right? Because we want to make sure that we remain visible and open. So I appreciate very much that answer, and I know our community does as well.
Absolutely.
You're off the hook
I'm
now.
off the hook.
For now, unless the audience
It's
wants something.
very, but I like that one.
Thank you very much. Kendall, I'll move on to you. Thank you for joining us. And I understand there's legal sensitivity around what you do, so I'm going to keep my questions very broad for you and know that you will answer them in a very broad fashion as well. Can you provide a high-level update on the city's legal response to all of this since receiving the FDOT letter?
Absolutely. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. So after receiving the letter, I think initially, as Brian stated, the original letter on June 30th, I read it as a blanket letter as well, kind of advising people that they found these crosswalks artwork to be non-compliant. I didn't take it as a direction specifically to the city because it was our position that they were compliant, and I think we still maintain that position for the most part. Outside of then the letter that we did receive on August 15th, where it did provide direction, I have been meeting with staff. I have been working to figure out how we remain in compliance. If we aren't in compliance, what we can do. I did reach out to the District 6 representative, Daniel Iglesias, for FDOT. Specifically, the day that we got the letter, or it was provided to me on the 17th, that Monday, I asked him again, because the letter just says the intersections at that, the crosswalks at that intersection. So it wasn't clear to me if it was all crosswalks or if it was just 2 of those. He did express, as Brian stated, that it was all 4 crosswalks. So I did then reach out to see if we could have communications. I was able to speak with Mr. Iglesias to figure out what their FDOT's position was, and he said, we were not in compliance. I asked, in the administrative rights, if there was an opportunity for a mediation to determine how we could come into compliance. And I was given, direction that wasn't gonna be the case at this time. But I did advise him that the city would be electing to, for administrative hearing. So we are still in the process of doing that. As of yesterday, we did retain outside counsel to handle this matter as it is on a city commission day, so I wouldn't be able to be there and handle it for the city. And I don't want to just send, someone in my office. I think this is an important issue and we need to, handle that and have someone, either expert or someone that can handle it, do that. So Weiss Serota has been retained. They're also, my understanding, handling it for Delray Beach as well as Fort Lauderdale. So he will be present for multiple entities for those administrative hearings on those days. So I think that's big to have the same attorney that's handling it for those entities. He has been provided all the information with the data that we've received, again, to the accidents and it being a safety issue, hazardous issue. In speaking into that research, I believe in the last 10 years, there have been about 12 accidents in that area, none specific to the crosswalks. So I think we have determined that, at least in our research, that it's not necessarily crosswalk specific. So we are moving forward with the administrative hearing on the 3rd. Again, a respectable counsel will be handling that. So I think, we're moving forward with that. It will be a request for a formal hearing. The letter did say that the facts are pretty straightforward and it would be informal, but we're of the position that it should be a formal hearing, so evidence can be presented in testimony in the facts regarding the safety issues that have been expressed as a concern specifically in that letter.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, so that went to my question too, is how are you preparing for the meeting? So I think you've gone through that. Is there anything else that you want to share that you didn't in your response about from the legal standpoint of how the city is also preparing, and maybe that is part of you're sort of thinking about in 2 camps is can they stay, but also in preparation if they can't.
Correct. And as Brian stated, some commissioners have asked for other opportunities and alternatives. I think sidewalks are a question. Sidewalks have been raised as not being allowed to have artwork as well. St. Pete, I think, has been, or Sarasota has been instructed to remove their sidewalk art. So I would steer away from that. But I personally, I lived in Chicago, and Boys Town is a reference. They have, pedestals and statues that I think, and just in the public, in everyone's comments at the last city commission meeting, it was expressed like, let's recognize the neighborhood in its entirety. And I think that could be a positive way, at least for me, to where we can put our efforts and see how we can incorporate that, into the city, and something that the state can't control or doesn't have, have the ability to control. Please don't take that as I'm saying the state has the ability to control this, but ultimately that, we can find avenues to make this a positive way of handling that if, the crosswalks do have to go.
Great. Well, thank you very much. You're off the hook because you answered two
Thank you.
questions in one shot, so. Or anything else you want to add? But I think you've kind of covered everything, and I thank you for sharing that information from the legal department, and it's, I think, good to know that we'll have representation there on the 3rd next month, and it's also in sort of in cohesion with other communities that are of the same mindset that they'd like to keep their crosswalks, and that messaging remains the same. Thank you much. Joe, moving on to you. You're already ready? Got the microphone. Stepping back to the broader picture with you, what does this push to remove rainbow crosswalks mean for the LGBTQ plus visibility and equality across the state?
Not a big question at all.
No.
Well,
I'll just sit down for a little while.
Yeah, I thank you for a little bit of latitude, because there's a lot to cover, and I won't speak for too long, but I do want to give you all a sense of what actually is happening in response to this around the state and how the city's been tackling it. But first, if I may have a point of personal privilege, Madam Chair, I just want to say how refreshing it is to be sitting with city staff who have reflected what you both have reflected. I wrote down, we understand being seen and understood. That's a very powerful thing to say in this context. Kendall, you get all the points for being the only city attorney I've ever heard use the word neighborhood. Well done. How did we get here? I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson, a quick one. You've heard some of it already. In June, Governor DeSantis started sending aggressive memos out of the blue to what we now know are at least 12 cities that have these signs of visibility in the forms of street art or crosswalks. And very quickly, I'll rattle them to you. It is, let me see if I can do it off the top of my head, Jacksonville, Gainesville, St. Pete, Tampa, Sarasota, West Palm Beach, Boynton Beach, Delray Beach, City of Fort Lauderdale, City of Miami Beach, Key West. I think I got them all. Orlando and Tulsa. 12. And it's not a mistake that these are some of the largest cities in our state with the largest economies, right? It's not a mistake that those same cities are the ones that have neighborhoods, and that those cities' local politics and local values have skewed towards the recognition of this community and the contributions that we make. And so it's not a mistake that Governor DeSantis, who, as I mentioned in my opening comments, has now shown us who he is. That's who Maya Angelou told us to recognize. The first time someone tells us who they are, believe them. We believe him. He will keep coming at us. And so it was a surprise. It felt like a shot from the left that we didn't see, but we weren't surprised that there was an attack that was coming. But let's be clear about something. There is no new law that's been passed by the legislature directing the governor as the executive branch to attack signs of visibility on city streets. There is no new rule that's been promulgated by the governor through a public process that we would have been able to follow and know, directing that this action happened. Where we actually are, and I think this is really important to the case that your city attorney and city manager and council have already made, commission have already made, which is that there is nothing new here. This is a new interpretation of existing guidance. And it gets really technical, which we won't go deep in the weeds on, but your city engineers follow things called the Green Book and a few other manuals that the state does have a legal obligation to help draft. And then they have, as your city staff, have an obligation to follow. But all they've done is said, we read this again and decided that we can, on our own, without any new law, reinterpret this to attack you. And that really matters, because all of these crosswalks in all of these 12 cities were put in place in coalition with, in collaboration with the Florida Department of Transportation, who signed off on many of them. In fact, when it comes to the city of Orlando and the Pulse crosswalk, the Florida Department of Transportation staff painted it themselves. Since these letters have gone out, we've seen cities respond in a bunch of different ways. Similar, I can sort of aggregate them into a few categories. One, all of them, especially as these second letters have gone out, have begun to audit all of the places where there is any kind of street art that is outside of what we would think of as a normal city street, and any sidewalk. And so what we've seen immediately in the cities that have begun to comply is the repeal of and painting over or direction that they may or are willing to paint over what we know are traffic safety tools in cities that are actually making people more safe. And I just want to give you one example. In the city of Orlando 3 months ago, the Florida Department of Transportation joined up with the city of Orlando to launch a contest at an elementary school. They knew that if they put a colorful crosswalk in front of the elementary school, that it enhances safety. And this makes sense. This is in the Bloomberg report that somebody here already mentioned. If something is more visible and it sort of stands out from what falls into the normal sort of gray of driving, you slow down, you take notice of it. And so FDOT themselves commissioned this contest. They picked a design from these elementary school kids. They painted the crosswalk. That crosswalk is now in the process of being repealed because of this new interpretation. This is happening all over the state. Bike lanes in Seminole County are being repealed that they spent millions of dollars on. So it is an important part of the discussion that we remind ourselves that they will make the state less safe to attack us. And that matters as we think about how we take on the responsibility of fighting back. So the first and most important city I think to talk about in this audit of what has happened so far is Orlando Impulse. Everyone here knows, I think, that in 2016, 49 people were murdered because most of them were LGBTQ, people of color. 53 were injured, hundreds more were traumatized for the rest of their lives. And as a result, a very important monument to our community's resilience has begun to be built that included a crosswalk. In the dead of night, none of these letters that the city of Key West got were sent to the city of Orlando. In the dead of night, FDOT came in and painted it over. And there's a really important argument to be made here about this process that your city has already begun to engage in. Orlando is the outlier. That's the only place that has happened so far. The second category of cities that have responded of the 12, and Boynton Beach stands alone in this one, is to immediately get the letter and immediately signal compliance and immediately paint it over it themselves. The city of Boynton Beach, which is a small to medium-sized city in Palm Beach County, less than 100,000 people. The politics on that commission had turned in the last election, and we went from a openly gay mayor, Ty Pensurga, to an anti-equality majority, so we weren't surprised that this was the first city to fall and that they didn't even really discuss a replacement. They just did what they did. The third group, which is the largest group right now, are the cities that have landed where I think you are, which is to say, whoa, what about the rights of cities? What are the legal rights of cities? A right to due process, a right to local control, a right to expect clarity and guidance, right? When the city of St. Pete filed their waiver with the state, the Florida Department of Transportation, one of the things they pointed out, which I think is very important, is that in the same Green Book, where there was a section that the governor's team was reinterpreting to mean no crosswalks, in a different part of the same Green Book, there's an explicit sentence that says, we encourage you to create street art. I guess they didn't read that section when they sent out their crazy letters to everybody, but this matters, right? So a right to clarity before you try to extort us and take all of our state funding, I think is a right that's been discussed. And finally, just generally the right not to be extorted. I think even though there is a pretty recent law that says that the state does have the power to withhold state funding if a city is out of compliance with traffic safety devices. This is important because not all of these crosswalks, not all of these paintings are for traffic safety devices. This is another legal theory. But there's still an argument to be made, should the state really have the right to do this? What about local control? What about, especially on roads that the state doesn't own or is not called to manage? So, Delray Beach, St. Petersburg, you all, Sarasota, Miami Beach, if they haven't formally made the decision that they are going to exhaust all administrative remedies, that's the language everyone keeps using, I've learned this in this process, administrative remedies, which is the process you've heard about a lot today, appealing in front of an administrative judge, the decision, and then going to an appellate administrative judge. That whole process is a right into law for these cities, and most, if not all, have gotten there. And then there are some, like the city of Fort Lauderdale, which yesterday, I'm here with you today. I hope I look refreshed, I'm not. I was in a 3.5-hour meeting with the a special commission meeting at the city of Fort Lauderdale that was called by Mayor Dean Trentalis in response to this and the Progress Pride mural that is painted outside of Sebastian Street in front of one of the most famous LGBT beaches, I would argue in the world, but certainly in the country, Sebastian Street Beach. He called a special commission meeting. 200 people showed up. It was a room a lot like this. Hours of testimony, unanimous. There was 2 outliers. There were 2 kooky people who said they wanted the crosswalk gone or the street art gone. And they made the strongest statement they've made of any city so far. They said, we understand that this is an attack on the LGBT community disguised as public safety. All of the data they have for their street art says that it's more safe. It's also a dead end. There's not even traffic that goes in it right now, which is also insane. But they said, we understand what this is. And they made a decision together 4-1 as a body that this was going to be the place where they made a stand. Not just for the LGBT community, which is a part of their map, but that this is about whether or not we're gonna live in a state where cities will just roll every time they do something that Tallahassee doesn't like. And let's be clear, every day, your very smart city manager and very smart city attorney and commission are doing things that Tallahassee doesn't like, right? So for them, it was a line in the sand moment. They said, if not here, then when? If not now, then when? If not here, then where? And they directed theirs, they were very careful, which I thought was smart. Perhaps Key West will sort of observe and decide is also a play. They did not require the city attorney to develop every legal theory that they might use in court against the state, because if you're gonna be in litigation with someone, you don't want to telegraph it all. But they just said, we're giving they directed their city attorney to exhaust every administrative option, including appeal. That appellate process requires the city to go past this deadline that the governor has given them, right? They've given the city attorney directives to, if necessary, file for injunctions against action, which they have a legal right to do. And they've given direction to, and I think these 2 are really important, to engage. This is all a kangaroo court. These administrative reviews are not gonna go well. Let's also say that to each other. To engage in civil action and seek a summary judgment from civil court. And I think this part's really important too. And to do it, if at all possible, in partnership with other municipal governments who are ready to take this on together. So the city of Fort Lauderdale was the first to put the flag down. And I do think this is a decision that your commission and council and very smart staff are gonna have to think through. But what is the most clear is that cities aren't rolling, they're resisting. And that's the ask from the community. The community in every single one of these markets has been the same, the most pronounced here, and I argue in Miami Beach and especially in Orlando and Pulse. This has now become a nationalized flashpoint issue, and it feels like a line in the sand, I think, to a lot of communities. The last part I just want to say, because I know this is baked into the discussion today, and then I will shut up, I promise.
No, you've answered every question. I mean, I'm still gonna prompt you with more.
Okay.
I think you cheated and looked ahead. That's cool.
I definitely wasn't emailing some of these questions before.
For the record, I did not email them. Just letting you know.
They were softball like broad questions. Yeah. The other thing that is emerging, and I feel like it's already been mentioned today in City Manager your comments, is a sense that, I don't know if people remember this, but when I first started doing this work, there was a ban on adoption by gay and lesbian people in the state. We couldn't adopt our own kids. They made our families invisible in state law, right? These pride flags are about the resilience around that. But it was Key West. It was families in Key West that sued and won all of us the right to have families, right? So there's a legacy here. At your house, that is right. There's a legacy here from Key West that I know you're going to hear about in a second that feels really, really important to me too, but and to all of us. But the theme that has come out most clearly, I think, from every city that's tackling this, and they're all doing it differently, is build back gayer. However they come from. When I bring up the adoption fight because we all thought every prognostication of the trajectory of court action, the 11th Circuit has always been terrible, and it continues to be terrible. Like state courts have always been hostile to us and to our issues, and everybody told everybody that we wouldn't win. And some people said, "Why try at all?" Because you don't know. And sometimes in social justice movements, you throw a Hail Mary because the point is the point, right? But regardless of that, I love that the way that this conversation has been constructed is to walk and chew gum, to have the discussion at the same time, because it's not either or, it's yes and, right? The city can file for its administrative reviews while you figure out how to answer the question of how do we make sure that there's never a question that Key West is a welcoming and inclusive place for this community. Where should, not just in private businesses, I want to make this point. It's important. Our businesses need to step up. But where does government show that they are sending the signal that this is a welcoming and inclusive place that recognizes the contributions of LGBTQ families, right? Yes, and so every city is having the conversation at the same time. How do we make sure, if you know the Streisand effect, if anybody's heard of that, that when they attack us and they steal one rainbow, that 10 falls in its place, right? After every hurricane, there's a rainbow. So let's triple the number of rainbows in this city. If the story that comes out of this, regardless of where every city is and the possibility of a class action lawsuit moves or doesn't of multiple cities, if the outcome is that Ron DeSantis came for our rainbows and you now can't walk through one of these 12 cities without seeing us even bolder, bigger than we've wanted to.
I have a follow-up that I hope, and we'll be quick because I do want to move on to Rob, but I think it's important because my question was going to be how does Key West really align with the broader efforts of other cities in Florida, which I think you really touched on, but what struck me here, because I'm watching Rob click his pen a lot too, is no offense. It's happening a lot. But what I was moved by was thinking about it not only from the government standpoint, because I think you've addressed a lot of that about what the city can do, but thinking about what can Key West do as a city? Like what can the business guilds do? Thinking about it from that perspective, not how the governments of each, the municipalities of each can bond together. What are suggestions, recommendations, or ways that you're already seeing, like things like the business guilds or these LGBTQ plus organizations within these communities start reaching out to others and finding hope and suggestions and camaraderie with that? If you can just speak to that sort of briefly,
and
that'd be great
happening.
too. So it's not government related, but community related.
Well, let me just say one more point about government, but there's such cool examples of how communities are stepping up, independent of the question of what's happening at their city commission and these really sort of in the weeds of questions about legalities. But I will say this, under the DeSantis administration, it's one of the most forward places in the economic work for our community. One of the places where we have been the most seen, where people have recognized the most quickly our economic value has been in tourism. And since the Don't Say Gay or Trans fights, we have seen, and since Trump got elected, let's be clear, the sense of retribution, the sense of punishment if you're out of alignment with where power structures are both federal and state level, we've seen this pulling back. And I won't go through all the examples that we've seen, but if you work in tourism, and I imagine many people in this room do, you know what I'm talking about. I think the Rainbow Crosswalks are becoming a proxy fight for who are we going to be. It's calling a question. And right now, there are 3 mayors that are Republican in these 12 cities who have all said, no, LGBTQ visibility matters to us, we're gonna appeal, right? These are bipartisan, usually unanimous votes in these bodies, and those votes matter to sending the signal to all of these different economic ecosystems about where we are and what we value and what we're willing to be seen. In Orlando, in response, where I think that the biggest explosion to these fights has been so far, we've seen businesses step up to call community convenings to paint the entire driveways of restaurants. A restaurant in Orlando, one of the best ones, has the best brunch, has offered 49 parking spots to paint rainbow murals in the entire parking. So you will never be able to drive to that restaurant again. And it's to represent the 49 lives lost at Pulse. Equality Florida has launched the hashtag Show Your Rainbow campaign, and it's time for all of us as individuals to put our rainbows back out. Me and my husband ordered ours. We live in South Beach. We're like, we don't need to put it there. Like, you know, how big? Maybe it's too gaudy. And now I'm like, no, I'm getting the biggest one I can, and putting our balcony matches the street. In Miami Beach on Sunday, I will at 10 a.m. be marching with our LGBT City Commissioner Alex Fernandez and the Business Guild, who has raised money to buy flags and Miami Beach Proud rainbow posters, and we'll be going door to door in the business district in South Beach, telling all of them to put their flags up and their posters up. Like, there is an organic response, and it's different everywhere. But this idea that we tell everybody, raise your flag, whatever that means to you, is emerging across the state.
Great, thank you. And I think something for us to consider as a community as we move forward as well, ideas and things that we can do in addition or complementing what the city effort is trying to do. Okay, Rob, ready?
Okay.
Sure.
Yep.
Kill me. Okay. During your introduction, you mentioned the rainbow crosswalks were installed through the Business Guild's initiatives and community support. Tell us more about that, because I know there's been a lot of information circulating on the old social media. So I'd like just some clarity on that for folks here.
There is a lot of information. Fritzy and I have been, kind of going at today, trying to figure out who is it that we can get to speak to, who was here, who was present. I was not present. A couple of you may have been present when the crosswalks were installed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I saw a lot of heads bobbing, so yes.
A lot of heads bobbing. Neil. Yes. Can you tell a little bit about it?
What?
Only because I think it's fair that it's an accurate depiction of what happened. And if it's not,
the guild at the time basically did a call to all the businesses in that area especially and asked for donations. And basically the guild put it together and got the original crosswalks paid for by the Business Guild, by the businesses that contributed. The Business Guild coordinated the whole thing. And that's how it all started. I don't know if there's any more information you want. I mean, unfortunately, the city, when they repaved Duval Street, they destroyed what we had done, so they were kind enough to go ahead and replace them. My understanding at the time, the original ones had hashes across because FDOT required it. We wanted exactly what we have now, and they said absolutely not. They said you've got to have hashes, so that's what the original one was. When the city redid it, they got permission from FDOT to do it this way, and it was all approved and done up and up, so I have no idea why the issue is here now, but that's what I know of it.
All right, that's great.
I appreciate that, Neil. So, there's
Thanks,
so
Neil.
much great things have been said, and just because of time, I just
You're moving on without me?
No, I just wanted to add, that when we look out our window every day, we see those crosswalks.
That's my question.
That's,
Hang tight. Yeah, did you all look at this before? I can just go to happy hour, you guys. Rob, my next question. The guild office is right next to the crosswalks. What do you see and hear from people interacting with them every day?
Well, Corey, I'm glad you asked. So our guild office is right at the crosswalk, and I see it every day when I come in, and like so many of us that live in cities, I mean, my mother was born and raised in Brooklyn and did not ever visit the Statue of Liberty until she had left Brooklyn for 30 years. So we look at it and we take it for granted that it's there. We have a different perspective because so many people that come into our office, whether they are members of the LGBTQ community, whether they are parents of LGBTQ, or whether they are allies, they come in and that crosswalk makes a difference. The number of people that we see out there safely taking pictures is amazing. So that it's part of travel and tourism. You mentioned travel and tourism. Our mission statement is to promote LGBTQ plus travel and tourism among allies. And I really want to call out the allies because you know what? I'm sitting here and I see I'm not going to curse, but I see so many allies, and that to me is just such a powerful statement for us to be able to project to the rest of the 700,000 people that have seen that post. So it does matter. Many people see that. Many people, it makes a difference.
Yeah, okay, great. You don't know what my next question is?
No.
What kind of impact do you think the crosswalks have on potential visitors who haven't experienced Key West yet? And how do you think those crosswalks contribute to our global image as an LGBTQ plus destination?
Last year, our map and directory, many of you know that every year the Key West Business Guild distributes a map and directory. And that map and directory last year was distributed for the first time throughout the country. We sent it to LGBTQ plus destinations all over the place. And what we placed on the cover of that was a depiction of those, of the crosswalks. Because it does make a difference. When people see that, they know that it makes a difference. They know that they're going to feel welcome. They know that they're going to feel, and again, it's not just LGBTQ people today. It's families, it's parents. The number of people that come in and say, my child, I can bring my child, you know, I brought my child in, you know, and because it creates that sense of safety. It creates that sense of belonging. You know, the hair on the back of our head stood up well over a year ago, and you can correct me on this, when the state removed the LGBTQ plus page from the Visit Florida website. The hair on the back of our neck. And much to our benefit, we have a county, TDC, and a county that immediately contacted us and said, look, you will not be erased. And if you visit our LGBTQ plus allies on the county site, it's still there. And again, you know, and for the city, you know, for them to be transparent with us from the very beginning with this has meant a lot to us, because it tells us that we can continue our mission of promoting travel and tourism throughout the world.
Good, thank you very much. All right, that's all the questions I have for our panelists. Oh no, I don't. I have one phoned in from someone that's sitting right there. Not Fritzy.
Did she say phoned in?
Yeah, did she text me? I mean, I'm sitting right here. The question, Kendall, can you answer? The September 3rd meeting, is that videoed or available on Zoom? Is that sort of in a public space or?
Do not unfortunately have the specific answer for that. I can call tomorrow and see what they say. I know we have to appear in person, so I don't know if there will be any Zoom access, but I'll get that information and we'll get it out on the website.
Okay, great.
And then Corey, if I may.
Abby? Yes.
Corey,
Please
if I may.
continue. Yes, of course.
Before the questions and the answers, I know there are a lot of commissioners here, so if they do not participate, please know that it's due to my advice, due to the noticing and potential voting that they may take next week, so please know that that was just my advice so they don't violate sunshine law.
Okay. All right, before we open it up, a round of applause. Thank you very much, our panelists, for being here and providing powerful insight on all levels. I think we touched on a lot. We're going to open the floor for public comment. I did have a few people sign up. I'm turning it over to Fritzy. No, you're going to take this one.
Okay.
You're going to need this.
Yeah. I'm loud.
Kenny?
Yeah, go ahead.
2 minutes
Starting
each
with
if
Kenny.
you can.
Okay.
There seems to be a very small window between getting together in Junction and their plan or threat, September 3rd, probably 2 in the morning. They're going to paint these things out. So what is going to happen on a Labor Day weekend that will help us help the situation?
I guess what I'll answer to that is, unfortunately, that is an unknown, based on the fact that we don't know what the outcome on September 3rd is gonna be. And again, administrative remedies, we need to exhaust those, ultimately, because to have, we have to exhaust administrative remedies to bring an action in court ultimately. If not, they can dismiss us for not exhausting those. So the first step is to attend on September 3rd and to see what happens there and what the directive is. I can't speak to what they're gonna say, and if they're gonna direct us to remove them that day or give us time, I think that's something to be considered at that time.
Clarification on the September 3rd also. Hi, I'm Jay. I was wondering, I'm so confused. What is it you're expecting on September 3rd? Because they won't accept an appeal, they won't consider an exemption. In the letter that they wrote, they said, it sounds like a why bother coming meeting, but I mean, obviously we need to go. I'm not disputing that. Would it help if a bunch of us came up with you? And so 3 questions in one. Is the deadline at midnight September 2nd or midnight September 3rd? Thank you.
Let's speak to that. As to the September 3rd, I did speak to, again, like I stated, Daniel Iglesias from FDOT regarding the September 3rd deadline to come into compliance. Ultimately, we do, by Florida statute, have the right to seek the hearing, which we are doing, and it was my understanding from him at that time that it won't be on the same day if we elect that hearing. So by us, again, exhausting our administrative remedies, it puts a potential stay on the removal, at least by FDOT, and us coming into compliance if we're not in compliance, because that's our time on September 3rd to determine if we are and make our arguments that we are and that they should stay. Again, it's gonna, what happens there and then the process after that, that's what we'll determine at that time, at that hearing. But again, if the public can attend, I will get those answers for you all, and we can publish that with Allison Green and then our website if that's something that's an option.
I might have an answer.
Okay.
Just on the question of if the meeting is public, so the meeting is being held at the Turkey Lake Turnpike stop. Right? Yeah, it's like not like a super accessible thing to the public, but there are like administrative offices for the Florida Department of Transportation at the Turkey Lake Turnpike stop, which is I think in Osceola County. So it's far from here, but it is technically a public meeting. Now, what does that mean? Our experience with agency stuff and executive level stuff is that it is not the same processes you all are used to with your city commission or the state legislature. But public as in the right has access to it, how big the room will be, whether or not they'll let people in that room are all questions that today remain unanswered. But I do know that there are some community members who are thinking about going. We have not directed, Equality Florida has not asked people to show up and do anything on site, but I imagine that there will be some that would.
So I look at this in different ways. So we know it's not for safety, and we know that this is political, and we know that here in Key West we've been beaten up. We had the Cleaner Safer ships that was organized, put on the ballot, we won, and then it was taken away from us. And then we have Judy Blume. She's a beautiful author. Her books are banned. By the way, I heard that Mein Kampf was still in the libraries. But we know people around the world are looking at us, and I travel extensively. I'm a million-miler traveler, and they ask me what's going on in this country, and I say it's a coup. And we really have to think different, people. It's not politics or business as usual. We really have to be strong. We have to, this town lives on gay tourism. Now, in the 90s, we had a lot of gays and lesbians and international gays and lesbians who would come and visit, could see it's a gay town. We've been gentrified because it's so expensive. You don't see as many gays and lesbians. So that crosswalk is a symbol. And by standing tall, we really would do ourselves a favor, business-wise, politically, for all the gays, lesbians, trans, bis, what have you. I say right now, first of all, that the city and the county commission should take a vote on this, and it should be unanimous by all the commissioners that they stand tall for gay, lesbian, bi rights. It should be made public. Also that, did I understand that we cannot paint the sidewalks? Is that right?
That's what the city attorney I'll say, and then you tell me if I'm wrong. The directive from this Florida Department of Transportation and the initial letters that called these crosswalks non-compliant includes in their definition sidewalks. So there's a question there on whether or not it should be, but their determination is that sidewalks are included. Would you
So then I would think that every business, every building on Duval Street would put a flag up for the rainbow flag. And I think our homes, our apartments, we should start hanging up that flag. And we really need to make a lot of noise on this because Key West wants to be heard, and this is the moment. So thanks.
I think that, some of the things that we're hoping to really gain, I mean, again, when I first opened up, I said, the passion, the creativity, the knowledge, and everything that was present on the day that we took that photograph in the crosswalk has incited this desire for us to look for options as we're moving forward. We have been talking, if you get our emails, how many of you get our emails? Okay, so about half of you know that, and on our page that we have initiated a Raise Your Flag campaign with a donation, a very generous donation that came in, and it's I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on who created it. It was Heather Whitehead,
Yeah, Heather Whitehead.
who provided the seed money to purchase flags to be distributed not only to the businesses but to individuals. And again, because this all goes back to when we were removed from the state's website. We knew that things like this were coming down the pike. So what is it that we can do to move forward? What is it that we can do? What are the thoughts? What are the ideas? What are the actions? And I think that is the important question right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna too. And as president of the Business Guild, and we've got some board members here tonight, so I want to thank them for being here. That's one of the things that we've been really focused on because, the city is doing what they can, what they're doing to the best of their ability, but we're not sitting on our hands waiting, right? The important thing for us is the lines of communication have been open, they've been very transparent, and as I say, communicative with Rob and with Fritzy, but we're not waiting, right? The important part for us is mobilizing. That's one of the reasons that Fritzy had this idea. Literally, we were all sitting together a week ago, and she's like, hey, I want to do this. And within a week, here you all are. And the panelists as well. And I think that's what's great about this community, and hearing that feedback and having those options and exploring what we can do in the event. And even if the crosswalks can stay, and that's the best case scenarios, those crosswalks stay where they should be, and where they mean so much to everyone. In the event that doesn't happen, what do we do in response to that? And being prepared, and if they stay, fabulous. But we can add to it. We can amplify, we can emphasize our openness and our willingness to have everybody come visit Key West for businesses benefit, the community benefits, and that's something that we're working on, I think, behind the scenes. And so I appreciate, from the board's perspective, we appreciate that message, and we're working very hard to do that. Okay.
I just had a question, I think probably for Jim from Equality Florida. Joe, I'm sorry, I'm very sorry. But do you have any sense of whether the state has been getting pushback from other cities that have painted crosswalks that aren't LGBTQ related? Like, I know we've been reading about like the Black Back to Blue that was painted over, the FSU one. There was that whole project in Tallahassee, the Crosswalks to Classrooms project. So is there any sense that clearly it seems like initially the rainbow sidewalks were targeted, but then it almost seems like the state had to sort of say, oh gosh, no, we have to paint over all of them. But is there do you have any sense of what's happening, in the broad sense of non-LGBT, any pushback from those cities?
Yeah, well, I'll draw the distinction between the cities and the bodies of government and their elected bodies and the public. And so for the former, I think all of these markets are a little slower. Like, our community is very sensitive to the censorship and to the attack. It's been happening for so long. We knew immediately what this was. It didn't matter what their talking points about safety were. By the way, there's at least 5 cities that have studies, similar to what I think, Rob, you were the one sharing about, or maybe it was our staff here, about all of our crosswalks are more safe than the crosswalks and things next to them.
Traffic slows down.
Yeah, right. It's just obvious. It's intuitive. We knew immediately what this was. Our community was the first out of the gate calling this out. But I do think there is a crescendo that's building that is leading to unlikely, or maybe not unlikely, but sort of unexpected allies in this fight. Like moms who are dropping their kids off at elementary school. They were like, wait, what? The governor hates gay people again, and now my kid, I need to be worried on whether or not a car is gonna see them when I'm dropping them off and crossing the street. Like, I think that the only time we've seen the governor adapt his messaging on this so far was after Pulse. And my prediction, and you can all buy me a Coke if I'm right, is that once that crescendo around these crosswalks in front of elementary schools in Sarasota, which is such an arts town, if anybody's a Sarasota person, like so anchored, the whole city's anchored in arts and culture. There's a series of sidewalks that the city has spent lots of money curating, that they actually hire like specific visual artists to curate. It's this amazing, it's amenity of the city that everyone loves. People are losing their minds over that. They're like, wait, because you don't like the rainbow crosswalk down the street, now this isn't here? So I think we're gonna see a shift in the governor's messaging on that too. It is possible, to go to the former question, that some cities have quietly applied for the exemptions that the governor has signaled in these letters they have a right to, and that the press is not covering it, and therefore we don't know that they've been granting exemptions to certain things. And eventually we'll know.
Thank you. Please call me.
Right, you're gonna owe me a Diet Coke, so I will.
Hi, I think this is a question probably for the city manager, maybe the attorney. You both mentioned that there's a city commission meeting the same day as the meeting in wherever on the interstate.
The turnpike.
Is there not a way to have our city commissioners and mayor go? Like, can you not change the date? I'm asking genuinely because I don't know the protocols on if a city commission meeting is already scheduled. Like, can that not be changed? And because this seems maybe equally as important, and I'm just wondering why that's not.
So thank you for the question and the opportunity to answer it. So a simple question and answer would be, can it be changed? A commission meeting be changed? It can. It just takes a commissioner and a second to say, can we move the meeting? It's been advertised, so that it gets a little cumbersome about the advertising, but can a meeting be pivoted off the original date?
All right, commissioners, y'all heard it. Already here. Let's go.
Jed Dawes. Thank you so much for being here, all of you. I think the presentation was incredibly thorough, so pretty much all my questions were answered. Especially heartening to hear about what's Fort Lauderdale has done. That was very encouraging for the commissioners here, whatever. I would just call them and let's sign on to that. They seem like they've got a really clear path forward. I think that this is happening so fast that there's an obvious attempt to just kind of plow over us, before we have a chance to respond, which is very frustrating because it's obvious what's going on. So my question is actually a fairly specific one to kind of try and clear up a thing that's one of the few things that I hadn't heard addressed yet, which is about who owns this street. I know that there's kind of a patchwork of the county road, the city road, and I understand that FDOT sets guidelines that everybody's supposed to follow, but would it be unusual, I guess, who owns the street and who has the authority to make repairs? Can FDOT staff just come in, and have they ever made alterations to city streets? Or is that a thing that normally they would impanel, city or county staff to do? So in other words, is it a thing where we can just not comply while the court plays itself out? Or do we run the risk of them just sending in staff as they did in Orlando and just do it without our permission?
Does the county own it?
Yes, so this is a county-owned road. Duval Street is, Petronius is city-owned. So I was looking to determine if we had a specific maintenance agreement for that, but it is a county road. Duval Street is from Eaton Street to Truman. So as to speaking, has FDOT ever come in and done anything to a county or state-owned road? That I can't speak to specifically, but I'm not here to say if they're gonna do it or not. I think the problem with it is, without an injunction or anything from stopping them to do it, that they will do it. And then in speaking to that, in not complying, that's where there's the threat of losing state funding. And that's for it was specific to traffic control devices, now it's state funding that's been deposited into the transportation trust fund. So a little more broad on that. So I guess, we'll see how that goes and how that would play into what funding gets cut from the city at that time.
Hi, so there's a few things I'd like to see. Good neighbor campaigns are wonderful for businesses to help show our support, but I agree with you that the city really needs to be representing us. And I think also when you were saying being vocal, like how important it is, like that we triple it, that we are vocal about that the city is, that they make statements, not just ours, but whoever else, and say like, we know what this is about, we know it's not about safety, we're putting up more rainbows, like, deal with it. I'd like to see that from the city if possible.
Yeah. A quick question. I'm gonna give it to her and I'll bring it back to you since you did get an opportunity.
Thank you. I have two quick questions. The first one is, it seemed really, really clear that the state has no intention of hearing us, that there's not going to be dialogue on the 3rd. Are we seeking any kind of injunctions ahead of that? Because I feel like the only reason they're even offering it is a tactic to wear us down, to have us spend time and money and everything else to just spin our wheels. So I'm wondering if we are doing anything to seek an injunction ahead of that. The second thing is, with the state coming in and taking the Pulse Memorial sidewalk in the middle of the night, and this is probably for the Business Guild, do we have any sort of, basically a neighborhood watch program to watch this, so that, because we can't let that happen here. We need to make sure that if they do it in front of the cameras and in front of the community.
You're just to kind of piggyback on her first question, you mentioned that the attorney that is going to be representing the two other cities, and my understanding is that Fort Lauderdale has started litigation process. Can you confirm that, Jeff?
What they did was took action last night, 4-1, to direct their attorneys to, the direction was exhaust all administrative appeals, administrative processes and reviews and appeals, and prepare for, and they delegated to the city attorney the authority to engage in both an injunctive relief strategy and civil court action.
Post-hearing.
Yes, it would be, you said this, but I would just underscore it. In order to engage in civil court processes, you have to exhaust your administrative remedies.
Thank you.
Right.
Back to her question.
And yes, and then in speaking to the city's actions on an injunction, that is set for the commission to determine on next week at the meeting. Specifically, this is more of a policy and the expense that it would be. That's something for the commission to decide and not for me to decide internally to, again, this would be outside counsel, this is a bigger issue, and for someone with the experience to handle. So, those are things to consider, and that should be up for the commission to decide, not just internally. So that's why that's on, has been set for next week. So that'll be a determination at that time, and I think the implication of it is the same as what Fort Lauderdale did with giving the city attorney direction and saying if they want to move forward with injunctive processes.
You want to answer this?
In regards to your question, excuse me, about a contingency plan, because we're a 501c6 organization, we can't really legally participate in the type of action that however, we can say that we support any
Okay, so I can put a
actions that
sign
any
up to that
members
side.
of this community, that any members of this community sees fit. We
Okay.
can certainly support.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe, I think unofficially, some of the 801 drag queens have said they're keeping an eye on the corner for now.
Yeah.
Is there a webcam at that corner?
That's, I was wondering that.
Is there?
Is there a webcam over the?
We
over
have,
the intersection?
we have two
Yes.
cameras
Is it- yes?
in front of our
There is,
building.
okay.
That we can shift up, but we have them specifically
Right.
for safety purposes for our building.
It would be interesting for.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, and if it was up and, if there was a webcam, I mean, people can take shifts watching, a webcam to see if
I mean,
the
I'm
signal's
sure
up.
that 801 probably, and we could talk to 801, we could talk
Larry's
to
been nodding,
Bourbon Street.
so-
Larry, you said Bourbon
He's been
Street,
nodding.
801.
801 has cameras.
Right, so we can keep those, we can talk to Dennis, who's the new manager there.
Okay.
So, I had a question and then I had 3 statements. So, what do we lose if we don't comply financially? What would it be if if they did paint over and we painted it back? And then we kept it consistent and made the news. Key West has painted their Rainbow Street again. And what if we painted the street outside DeSantis's house with a rainbow? And also, I think it's precious that if we put in the paper that the 801 drag queens are policing the street.
I actually do love that, federalizing the drag queens.
Hi, my name is Bobby Gould, and I think it might be fairly clear which side I'm on, considering what I'm wearing. This goalpost with this administration just keeps moving further and further and further, and it's like, okay, you might think it's just a rainbow crosswalk, it's so much more than that, right? And the only way we can really push back is, I mean, what if we just lay down on that freaking street, we have to camp out or something, and we're like, we're here, we're not going.
Drag us
Like,
away.
What happens? What would be the
Drag
worst
us away.
case scenario if we did that?
I mean, that's a pretty good question.
I'm coming around.
I guess
Well,
that would,
please
I
take
guess
us
that would
away.
be my question.
Can we do it without being arrested?
You know what, sit-ins were a thing, I mean, what happened? They can physically be removed.
Let's go.
Right, so, give me a little grace because there was
Yes.
some
Yeah,
statements
let's
made.
just,
I wanna go back to the initial question that was asked about funding. So I can't tell you what the funding would be lost. What I would tell you is what is correlated to the funding that is programmed. So right now, the initial, responsibility of the city is our transit is operated pretty much majority of the funding is grant funded for our transit. So there's a good opportunity where that state funding, more than 50% of the state funding that subsidizes the transit for the city is in jeopardy. So that's the initial answer. The second thing is we have projects that are programmed, the first one being the Jose Martin infrastructure. It's a lift station, and anyone that's around Bayview Park understands that it's below water. So that's a $14 million project. It's driven through FDOT. There's a 50-50 match with the city. That could go away completely. And it would be the responsibility if we were to do it, to come up with that funding. So that's 14 million there. Upcoming there's a Flagler project programmed with the county. It's a $100 million project. Goes from North Roosevelt Boulevard and South Roosevelt Boulevard to Bertha. So there's some, it's the carrot or the cane, but to answer your question, it's considerable funding. That's not to even mention veto. So there's some things that we went up to Tallahassee and lobbied for and we believe got approved that could easily be vetoed as well. So it's difficult to aggregate the total number of funding that would be lost if if it goes down a particular path where that was the cane portion of the conversation.
And that's hypothetical though, right?
What is hypothetical, I'm sorry?
The threat of it being taken away, they haven't taken away money from any other city, right? It's all threat. It's the same thing with the tweets. I mean, gee, it's a threat, they're gonna do something. It's not actually been done.
We haven't lost any funding, so I can only speak for what happens in the city. I'm not aware that they've taken funding from anywhere else in the state of Florida.
Not over this, not yet.
Right, it is in the state statute though, so it is written on this one that they would withhold state funding if you're not in compliance.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit of a suggestion maybe with the lead-in. Well, I think we should call it the Gayborhood Watch, obviously, right?
Right.
It's like, and it should be like disco glasses, it's like binoculars. But I wonder if there's a lot of the business guild, the business leaders in this room, a lot of artists in this room, some arts leaders in this room, and I wonder if when you're talking about Sarasota specifically, which I just went to visit, it was lovely, surprisingly, but it was mostly lovely because, well, I didn't know Sarasota was so artistic. And I wonder if there's a way to think a little strategically in all of this. While the rainbows for those of us who are queer or lesbian or gay or bi or trans or anywhere in the non-straight spectrum, can we just say non-straight? Because that's what all those letters are meaning. The question for the non-straight community is that recognition that we are colorful, we are not boring, we are fun, and we are having a good time. And I wonder if there is something about the Grow Back Gayer that it's almost like we could try to push forward some sort of garden of art in our community that is before the floods that wash out the things that are coming. Because this, like everybody said, this is just the beginning. We got years of this shit if it keeps coming. And there's a way that we could functionally frame everything to be about creativity and bringing people to the community. And my lovely girlfriend and I are going on a trip to Europe in a couple of weeks, and we've been looking at those umbrellas over the streets, and like, it's so hot in Key West. Let's cover the street with colorful umbrellas, and then it's like, it's cooling and also happens to be super gay. And so if we could all think a little out of the box and a little more creatively, I think we might be able to channel the passions of the elders and the ancestors, and like the pendulum swinging back this way. So let's do some of the sit-ins and the creative things that people did that were about creating gay joy and creating a face of love and joy in the face of fear. Because I think Lucy's right, so much of this is about fear, and erasing those sidewalks is about scaring you into staying in your house. So how can we say, okay, I don't need to be in that crosswalk, because the whole community is colorful and the whole community is inviting in a way that doesn't necessarily make straight people feel uncomfortable. So that's my suggestion for everybody to ponder. Thank you.
I want to, first of all, and that's the energy I think that we need. That's the energy that we need, you know, that proactive and not reactive energy. And that's exactly what the motivation for putting this community gathering together has been. It's a community gathering. You know, because, and that's what, you know, and I'm going to go back to our mission statement. I'm thinking ahead is, if these crosswalks are taken, what am I going to do to promote our community to LGBTQ plus and our allies, to get them to come and visit Key West, to know that they are welcome, to know that they are safe, and to know that we are artists, we are writers, we are songwriters, we are musicians. We are all of that as a community, and that's where my head's at.
I'm one of those allies that Rob mentioned earlier. And I keep hearing this statement, this term, about withholding the funds and everything if we are not in compliance. Now, most of you don't know this, but I spent 40 years working for the federal government in the engineering field. and I've read that manual of uniform traffic control devices from back to front and front to back again. I've also read the FDOT, which has to meet or exceed. And there is nothing in either of those publications that indicates that those rainbow crosswalks cannot be there. They are in compliance 100%. There's just one or two people that are arbitrarily determining that they are not. I know you're doing your homework, and I'm sitting there, my wife and I are both big fans of yours. And I just want to see the term interim removed. But that's neither here nor there. They are in compliance. And I'm also watching as, oh, they're in compliance? Okay. Let's change this and interpret it this way. Where are they going to stop? Now, they've already interpreted, oh, and by the way, the sidewalks are included too.
Right.
Okay? They're going to, where are they going to stop?
The flag is next. Yeah.
They've already tried the flag, and that you know, they're still flying at City Hall.
Yes.
And oh, by the way, I have my new embroidered two-sided rainbow Concord Public flag, thanks to the Key West Business Guild, and thank you, Rob, for hiding that one for me. Again, I don't want to get way off topic, but you know, I'm one of the older people in this room. I just turned 71. Back when I was young, there were no gay people. Okay? Every one of my gay friends in here just shaking their head. Yeah, we were behind the closet. Okay? So I had to grow up with whites only, colored only, back of the bus. I actually witnessed Axe Handle Saturday in Jacksonville, Florida, as a child. Now I'm getting emotional. This little battle with the crosswalks means the world to me. To me. Okay, and I haven't had my rights stripped. I haven't had anyone try to strip my rights. And I'll be damned if I'm gonna let them strip yours.
Is that, oh, one more, two?
Thank you, Fritz. I live a few blocks from here, so to me this is about my neighborhood as much as my city. But I want to say this, and Brian, please carry this back to the city commission. I do hope if we have to replace this, we don't move off to Mallory Square or some obscure place or a statue in the sculpture garden. It needs to be on Duval Street and in the middle of Duval Street, and it needs to really be in the 700 and 800 block of Duval Street, where gay people are used to congregating and feeling safe. It won't do us any good to have a monument off on some city park way away from the action of Duval Street.
Amen.
Hello, my name's Bobby Coe. I moved here about 20 years ago, maybe. I was a drunken, wild child, fun kid, and now I'm a sober, asshole, gay man. Only one thing hasn't changed. But I will say, the crosswalk wasn't there when I moved here. But I felt the safety of this community. When I moved here, I felt like a freak. When I moved here, I felt normal. I think we should all look at each other in this room and realize the Larrys, the Sam Kaufmans, the others that are here are the rainbow of this community.
Bravo!
Don't let some asshole in Tallahassee tell us how we should live our lives here. We need to stand up to these people, and I agree with Larry. We need to make sure that crosswalk does not change. That crosswalk means a lot more than just a crosswalk. It's the fabric of our community, and it's something that all of us believe in. I've got neighbors that are sitting in this room. I've got people that we've disagreed with in this room. Let that be the rainbow. Let it shine. Let's put up a fight. Let's not let this happen.
Look at me like, no announcements, not for you. Everybody can stick around and talk to you afterward.
That's what I was gonna announce.
Oh. I read your notes now. Okay, great. Okay, thank you. We are winding down because we promised to give back this space pretty soon. So before you leave tonight, I want to thank everyone who shared tonight, your passion, your ideas, what can be, what we're passionate about, and keeping these crosswalks, if they stay, if they go. Thank you, I think, for the feedback that we got from all of our panelists, and really what celebrates our diversity. This place is as a global destination for visitors and residents here who want to feel safe and welcome in their own backyard and standing strong in our values. That to me is something that's so important here, and obviously for you, otherwise you wouldn't have joined us tonight. Fritzy, I think, are you handling this next part or no? Rob, how to stay involved? It's the how to stay involved portion of the evening.
Let Rob handle that.
Rob? Okay. Fritzy's name's on my list. Okay, how to stay involved. Because this is not the end of the
I got it.
Don't raise your hand.
Volunteering.
I know, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You know, Larry, when you were talking, there's some of us, I'm looking around, and there's some of us of a certain age. And there's a period in our history that I don't speak of often, because so many of us died. So many of us buried friends, and so many of us saw it on a daily basis. And I don't want to be the person who's raising that flag and saying it's going to happen, but there's just this thing that scares the shit out of me. That says if we don't step up, it's going to happen. So our challenge to you, and I know that a lot of you know that Fritzy, who is the right hand of the Business Guild, and myself, we do a lot. And we would love to be able to say this is something we want to do. We can't because we just don't have that energy. So my challenge to each of you here tonight is to find a way to take this one step further, that it's not going to stop here. I am grateful to every city commissioner and to every city official who has supported this from the very beginning, but this is just the top. I challenge everybody in this room to find people that are going to help us move forward as a community, unified. We may not agree on everything. We may not even like people. But there's one thing that we are, and that's one human family. And I'm looking at allies, and I'm looking at members of the LGBTQ plus community, and I'm thinking, we got this. We really got this. And that's what I want.
And I'll just add, so what's next, right? How do we move forward? The purpose of this was to get everyone here in one space collectively and come up with, the next step in the event, and trying to be proactive. Obviously, the goal is to fight and to keep the rainbow crosswalks where they are. But in the event that they are removed, how can we collectively get together and be represented in this community without losing any visibility, without losing who we are at our core. So I'm happy to speak with anyone after this. My phone line is open. I'm happy to share my email and contact information if anyone wants to get involved in moving forward. I'd love to hear from you. So thank you. Oh, sorry.
Quick question.
Yep.
Those two very pale pink columns that enter Bahama Village, right across the street from all the action, actually right over all the action. Must they remain pale pink, or can they be lightened up a little bit?
City manager.
If the guild would have paid for it. Wait, we got an answer. If we get the I made Brian laugh.
Excellent question. In fact, Commissioner Castillo and I were talking about that this morning. What I believe is one of the most sentimental and resonates out of this conversation that we're having is that regardless of what the end result with FDOT is, I do believe that there is also opportunity for us to find avenues in which we can continue to represent the entire community the way we should.
And I'll pass it on to you, Corey.
Okay, all right, we're wrapping it up. Okay, we're gonna close out tonight. I wanna thank all of you, sincerely thank all of you for being here. A special thank you to our panelists, Brian Barroso, City Manager, Kendall Harden, Interim City Attorney, Joe Saunders from Equality Florida, and Rob Dougherty from the Business Guild. Thank you all for being here, bringing your knowledge, your expertise, your voice, and the transparency with which you presented tonight. I know standing here, I appreciate it, and I learned a lot, and I feel like I've learned, I know what's going on, and I still learned a lot, so I think everybody feels that way. Can I round of applause with Dorian for helping us get together here, city staff for helping us put together, City of Key West for letting us use this space, and a heartfelt thank you to Fritzy Esteban for having this brainchild. And thank you to all the commissioners that were here as well. I know you can't participate, but your presence here means a lot to us. This is what makes Key West extraordinary. Thank you, thank you.
I think